Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is Bob Pizzini, someone that I know and really respect. Got to spend some time with him out in Virginia Beach a little while ago. We have some good mutual friends. And Bob is a 26-year Navy Special Operations veteran in explosive ordnance disposal. And he is also the founder of I Fly Virginia Beach. And I got to go out and do some indoor skydiving, which was fascinating and awesome. And we'll talk about that. And most recently, Bob has created Elevate Your Leadership. So if you go to facebook.com, Elevate Your Leadership, or LinkedIn.com, Elevate Your Leadership, you can find Bob. And if you're a fanboy like me, you can also find him at Robert Pizzini, Robert, Pizzini.com. So that's Bob and how you can find him. And Bob, welcome. I really appreciate you making the time.
Hey, John, thank you so much. I love every discussion you and I have ever had. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Awesome. I feel the same. Well, you know, we talk here about leadership and communication and wherever that takes us. And, you know, there's a lot that you've done and a lot of experiences that you've had, some of which I've heard and some of which most of which I know I haven't, but that really, I think are things that people in any realm of leadership doing anything could really learn from. And so let's talk about, since I said we'd talk about it, let's talk about I Fly Virginia Beach, because I want to go back and talk about your 26 years in special operations. And I want to talk about Elevate Your Leadership. But I Fly Virginia Beach was, that's a big deal. You got a bunch of employees. It was a massive investment to get that thing built. And I got to come out and spend some time with you and do some flying in the wind tunnel. And it was really, really wild and fun. You know, I watch people when they're skydiving and they make it all look so easy, right? It's not that easy, you know?
No, for sure. You did a great job, though. You did, you got in there and you got in your groove.
Yeah, well, you know, took me a little bit, but and you had some great people working with you there. You have the Golden Knights come train there, don't you?
We have Golden Knights. We have special forces from not only the U.S. but from different NATO countries and other countries, and we are the world's premier military training facility, but we're also a very reliable, dependable, and professional operation across the board.
Yeah. Well, you know, I want to talk about that for a second, because there's a piece that I want to point to, which is that was a huge investment. It was not a super easy thing for you to do, if I remember correctly, but you saw a real need and you went for it. So tell us about that, and tell us about maybe one of the really tough moments getting that whole thing to happen and what you learned from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So many lessons learned. But, you know, towards the tail end of my military career, I was responsible for sustainment and advanced airborne training, military parachuting for 1,200 or so EOD forces stationed on the East Coast. And we would travel to different parts of the country and use these flight tunnels, these vertical wind tunnels. You know, that's kind of the generic name.
So, and you know, if people don't know what these are, basically it's a big, huge tube with a big, gigantic, powerful fan that has adjustable speeds. Yeah. And then a little bit above the fan is a mesh net so that you don't get caught in the fan, right? So, and there's an entrance and you kind of go out into this tunnel and the fan's cranking and you're dressed up with a helmet and your skydiving one-piece suit on, and they can turn the speed of the wind tunnel up and down, and you go up and down in this column, and it's absolutely amazing. I mean, you're just flying in place, basically.
You're literally flying. You're floating on a cushion of air, in the sky. You're falling through the air. but the net effect is the exact same. So this
Yeah.
tube, as you referenced, it's 14 feet in diameter and it's 52 feet tall. And the fans are actually on the fourth floor of the building and they're offset. So we have this double recirculating loop. So there's two fans to the right side of the flight chamber, two fans to the left side of the flight chamber, and the wind kind of recirculates down the air towers, meets in the middle down in what we call the basement or the plenum, and then it comes right up through the middle through the flight chamber. And it creates that super steady cushion of air that is, it's uniform, it's steady, and it's uniform. It's what we call very clean air. So
Yeah. Okay. Good. All
cool.
right. So if I fell through the net, I wouldn't get chopped up in the blades.
You wouldn't, but you'd never get through that net to begin
Yeah.
with.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, so that's fabulous. It was so fun. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No, that's all right. So we would go to these different locations around the country and train. And we would always come back to Virginia Beach, which is a tourist destination, by the way. We have an ocean front, the Atlantic Ocean. We have beautiful beaches. And we would always come back and say, why isn't there one of these in Virginia Beach? What a great location. Military doesn't have to travel to train. And we have all these tourists here. And there was a lot of rumor and innuendo, or rumor and incorrect information. So, we would discuss this either on the drive back or the flight back from wherever we just got done training. And we saw mom, dad, and the kids, besides the check I was writing and all the military, we saw the full activity, mom, dad, and the kids, and birthday parties and date night out and membership programs. And you don't have to be a skydiver to come and fly in the wind tunnel. We fly kids as young as 3 years old. Anyway, we'd always come back and
visit you with Johnny here really soon.
Yeah. We'd always come back and say, why isn't there one in Virginia Beach? I started tracking down this incorrect information. Oh, it's too loud. The city won't let you do it. I thought that can't be true. There's no noise outside the building at all. And inside the building, it's about 80 decibels, no hearing protection required. In the flight chamber, it's a little different, but in the building itself, no problem. So and then there was rumors that somebody else had bought the rights to the territory, or the manufacturer of the equipment didn't want one in Virginia Beach. And I just tracked all this incorrect information down and realized it was incorrect. There were 5, I would say, serious efforts to do this in Virginia Beach before I did. And I tracked all of those people down and, found out what happened. Did they run out of gas? Did they run out of money? Why didn't they get it done? So after gathering all that information, I was more determined that this was going to happen in Virginia Beach sooner or later, and I wanted to be the one to do it. So fast forward a little bit, I did my research. Of course, I didn't know how to spell the word business at the time. When you do 26 years in Navy Special Operations, you get good at spending millions of dollars, government dollars or taxpayer dollars, but we don't really have profit and loss statements and balance sheets and things of that nature. So I had to learn all that. And there were local resources here through the Chamber of Commerce that really helped me get through that. And by doing that, I came up with a plan that was presentable to an investor. So a business plan. But here's the first thing I learned, and this is the biggest takeaway. That business plan was about 25% of what I walked through the door with when I went to see that investor. 75% of what they're looking at is you or me. Yeah. They want to know, who am I potentially going to establish a long-term relationship with? And they want to see reliability and dependability and stability and all those other ilities that are necessary to be a good business partner. Now, that was, over 10 years ago, and I still have my business partner, and we have a great relationship, and things are going very well. But I had to sell myself, and some of the things that I used, or the stories that I told to sell myself, was the fact that I've run a marathon. Not everybody signs up and runs a marathon. And of all those who do sign up, not everybody completes one. Now, I've only done one, and I did it in a respectable time. But, again, that's a significant undertaking. I completed a graduate degree while on active duty, night school, so to speak. And I had a 26-year career in special operations. Those are the things I put forward as that's who I am. I'm somebody who can stick with it and get it done. And so that was a big lesson learned for me is, they're looking at your character, your moral and ethical character, and your track record of accomplishing things.
And that's that's one of the things that I work with people on when I'm doing pitch coaching for startups or people that are out there raising their B and A and B rounds and seed rounds and things. The investors always say that, right? They say, we're not investing in the product. We're not investing in the company. We're investing in you, And I think a lot, and so it is about you and the team. But I think that a lot of times people stop early with their understanding of that. They think, oh, well, like I've done this thing in the past and these people on my team are from Microsoft and Google and whatever. So we're good. But that's nice. The pedigree is nice, but it's not about the pedigree. That's not what they're actually talking about. They're talking about things like you signed up for, trained for, and then completed a marathon. You actually did it. And what other things about you point to the fact that when this hits a snag, which it inevitably will, how are they going to count on you to keep going through those difficult times, right?
Yeah, well, I'd say we hit a pretty big snag effective March 23rd of this year. And
of course. Yeah.
And we're still working our way through it, but we've had incredible success getting through that. And it's because we have a solid team. And that solid team was very deliberately developed. You don't just pick the winners and, hey, you're a great person. You're on my. Once you get that team together, you've got to develop that team. And I have 6 people. I have 6 managers that work for me, and so due to their great leadership and the unity of this team, we are getting through this thing, and we're getting through it with flying colors.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I'm really happy to hear that, Bob. I can only imagine, right? I mean, that's one of those, out in public kind of things.
Oh, big time. Yeah. When this whole thing started, I was perplexed, to say the least. I knew we would get through it. I had no idea how, but I knew we would get through it. And, when it's foggy, you can only see so far. And, we just took it one day at a time, and the fog started to lift a little bit here and there. And if we could see further, we could act, based on how far we could see. And that's what we've done. And we kept everybody on the team. I did not. Nobody left and took the unemployment.
Yeah,
and that was critical because when it was time to reopen, I didn't have to retrain and rehire. I had a fully functional team. We did not lose a single bit of momentum. It was and is incredible.
That's really fabulous. Congratulations. Oh my gosh. Talk about a snag. Yeah. For the moment, just being in the conversation with you, I kind of forgot what's going on all around us. Yeah. I've been saying we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good analogy. You've been in the conference room here, and that's where I am now. And I'm overlooking the ocean front there. Yep. And a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants, a lot of amusement and recreational places here at the Virginia Beach oceanfront. A beautiful resort city. And we were all ships in a harbor that were sinking back in late March, early April.
Yeah.
And we, as a business community, we got together and a P3 loan and some other things, but we figured out, for the most part, how to keep ourselves above the waterline. And for my business, we're well above the waterline at this point. We're doing pretty well.
That's really great. Are you guys just doing social distancing and?
We put all the implements in play that the state and the CDC required. So we reduced our class size. So, for example, normally we fly 12 people every 30 minutes. We reduced that to 8 people so we could socially distance in the classroom. In the classroom, it was designed for about 12 or 15 people. So we reduced the class size to 8. We don't allow spectating anymore. A lot of times people love to come and watch. It's such a cool thing to watch, as you know.
Oh, yeah, really.
So no spectators. And so we limit occupancy of the building. And we've always been reservation based. We did have a walk-in process, but 90% of our flyers come via reservation. And now we just made it a 100% requirement. You can't walk in and get a flight. It has to be reservation based. And then we clean everything. We always clean the flight suits and the helmets and the goggles, every flyer anyway. We
Yeah.
disinfect. Disinfecting was part of our routine before the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
but we've beefed that up. We've added all the horizontal surfaces, and we steam clean the flight suits now. So
Uh,
we've added integrity to our cleaning process, but it was already very good.
yeah.
We've been open since June, open to the public since June 5th. We've probably had 15,000 people come through between June 5th and today. And we have had 0 incidents or complaints or cases of any COVID-related transmission whatsoever. Now, knock on wood, but we're not letting our guard down.
Yeah.
We're staying on top of this. And again, I have a responsible team. They're doing a great job. And they come to me and say, I know our general manager put out this instruction that says we should do it this way, but we think this other way is even better. And it's like, all right, team,
Great.
let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was talking with Oscar Rojas, who's Commodore of EOD Group 1, so one of your brothers in arms.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we were talking about this as well, and I think he called it a contaminated and contested environment. And we are essentially all living on the planet now in a much more contaminated, particularly contaminated with a novel disease. And just because of that contamination, it becomes contested. And because of maybe some of the things that are going on. I mean, we're definitely in not exactly like you guys would be, but we're in a contaminated, contested environment. And I really feel like putting everything else aside, stay safe to stay open. I don't think that it's a choice. I think it's a false dilemma to say, keep people safe or have an economy. I don't agree. I think that the better we do at keeping people safe, the better we do at having an economy.
Yeah, we can do both. We have to do both. If I didn't have the professional training that we did, that's government based, it'd be a different situation. And and again, we're doing everything that's prescribed and then some. And so far so good. But economically speaking, and again, I'm the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce for the city of Virginia Beach. So I know the business outlook here very well. And there are some businesses that will not recover, that have already closed and will not recover. And, when I called my banker when this shutdown first happened, and I said, I'm not making a payment next month. He said, what do you mean you're not making a payment next month? I said, the governor just ordered a closure.
Yeah.
I can make 3 weeks of payroll and keep my employees reduce their stress level for the next 3 weeks, or I can make one more banknote payment, and then I know I'm not making one after that. Yeah. So I'm not making this next one. I'm gonna err on the side of safety for my team and pay them. Make payroll while they're staying home for 3 weeks. This is before P3, was established.
Yep.
And of course, we got that resolved because I was just the first one to call my banker and say, I'm paying next month. He called me 2 days later and he said, man, Bob, he said, yeah, I got it. He goes, I got about 100 phone calls right at the same day you called. He goes, I got it. Well, let's figure something out. And we did. And we're in good standing. Everything's cool.
Well, and again, part of that is a relationship. Part of that is him knowing you and your character, and that's which I think is just one of the biggest things about leadership and communication, period. Right? Like that's a microcosm of the macro.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. You lead by example. As a leader, people are watching you. What kind of shoes are you wearing? What kind of belt are you wearing? Are you well groomed? Do you walk it and talk it? And when you don't, as a leader, you'll get called out right away. Now, there's something different called challenging assumptions. And I love it when my management team challenges my assumptions.
Yes.
There can be something called dynamic tension. We have disagreement, but that disagreement is not personal in nature. It's directed at the subject or the issue. And we find if you want to get to the right place, have these discussions with your team, have them challenge your assumptions and help you make good decisions. It's really that simple.
Well, Bob, I love that, because one of the things that I talk about a lot with the leaders that I work with is the fact that many of them are very charismatic people. So they're charismatic leaders. And one of the biggest problems that a charismatic leader has, like one of the really big, like documented issues, is because they're so charismatic, no one wants to ever give them bad news. No one wants to tell them anything bad. And it's not even because, sometimes it's because they're afraid of them too. They're afraid of what the reaction would be, which is, that's bad on the leader. But a lot of times it's not even that. It's just that they like them so much and they just want to make them happy. So I think as a leader, to say, challenge my assumptions, and to make it part of the culture that it is okay to do that. In fact, it's expected, it's important. Then your people come back to you like yours did and say, hey, the general manager said we should do it this way. We think we have an even better way.
Yeah, without a doubt. That charismatic leadership style, if it's one of the styles that I think has the lowest or the shortest life expectancy.
Yeah.
If they hedge, the majority of their leadership style based on charisma, then it's like you said, people are afraid to come, and they're afraid to say the king has no clothes if that is the case. Yeah. And they are more afraid to challenge assumptions and now juxtapose that against a leadership style called referent, 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 and that's a leadership style where you are well liked, and your team, the people you lead, they want to do what you would do in that situation. So they find themselves relating to you and they like you, but they ask themselves, what would John do in this situation? And that's a very positive leadership style.
Without any disrespect, Jesus is a referent leader, because people are always asking themselves, what would Jesus do?
Yeah, right. No, there's no question about that. And it's a good place to get to. But, with all the leadership styles and reliance on your team, again, there's a dynamic that has to be built over time, that trust. People don't challenge the boss's assumptions on day one. There's a rapport that's developed. There's a person getting to know each other, and some people are very conversational. Hey, how was your weekend? And some people don't want to waste the time to have that discussion. We got things to do here. So you got to get to know the people and the personalities, but a good leader, he has his eye on that. He or she is focused on that. You're developing that dynamic within your team.
Yeah. Well, let's go back and talk about those 26 years that you spent with EOD doing all kinds of exciting things. So tell me about one of the great leaders you had and a story about an impact that they had on you.
Yeah. So believe me, I could tell you many, but I'll tell you one. A good friend of mine, Mark Sanders, was a commanding officer. He's retired now, like I am, but he was in charge of a major operation in Thailand. And I was my unit. I was the forward deployed operations officer for about. I think we brought six EOD detachments. So we had roughly 75 or so people in Thailand. And this particular Commander Sanders, I watched him brief a room full of generals and admirals. U.S., Thai, Singaporean, or Sing, and I think there was another country. I think the Philippines may have had some representatives there. So it's probably 30 admirals and generals, big conference table, the lighted microphone when you're speaking and all that stuff. It was like a UN General Assembly. So he briefed these admirals and generals, very high level briefing. They all marched out of the room. And the enlisted cadre came in, about another 20 or so people, and he used the same set of slides, but his delivery, he just adjusted his delivery to what they needed to know, to what they're good at. He took this 30,000 foot presentation, which was polished for the generals and the admirals, and he repurposed it, and he briefed the action people, the enlisted teams and the team leaders. And I just thought, and he connected with both groups like he had known both groups forever. So that ability to communicate and what came through was sincerity and authenticity, and he knew what they needed to know. And so that was very impressive. So that was kind of a communication thing, but very effective. That's one example. Another example.
Fabulous. I mean, that's all about being responsible for what they hear. Just making it about the audience. It's not about you and you got to get through your slides and the things that I want to say. Right. No, it's about what do they need to hear? What's their level? And, I just want to put a pin in this, Bob, just to like put a little flag in this, because this is one of the things that I hear so often is, well, sometimes I get a little bit in the weeds and stuff. And okay, you know what? That doesn't work. And that's about you. That's about because all this stuff and you feel comfortable talking about it. But this audience doesn't care at all about that. They need that General Admiral 30,000 foot view. If you get in the weeds, you're just it's not gonna go as well, So I love the appropriateness of how he did that, and the same set of slides.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I'll give you one more. I was an instructor at Navy Dive School in Panama City, Florida, back in the late 90s. Yeah. And I was responsible for a pretty significant diving operation in the Gulf of Mexico. It was the final qualification dive for about 40 students. And when we would go out there, we would do this thing. I'm not going to reveal the thing at this point, but we'd go out there and we would perform a task that the new commanding officer said we will no longer perform. So we were literally getting ready to leave the pier and go out and conduct diving operations. And I got word that the new commanding officer said we will no longer do that while we're out conducting Navy dives. And I looked at my team and I said, today's the last day we're going to do that. And so we got out on the water. Things went badly for a variety of reasons, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that I was violating the commanding officer's new directive. Now, here's what happened after that. So I come back to the command. I was sent home for 3 days, and I didn't know it was 3 days. They said, go home. We'll call you when we decide it's time to talk to you. 3 days later, I was called back to the commanding officer's office, and I went in his office, fairly certain that I would leave his office in handcuffs under military escort. What he did was ask me why I violated his new directive. And my answer was simple. It was out of self-interest. And if I could go back and have that day over again, I would absolutely follow his directive. And I know better. And professionally and personally, I apologized. And, personally, I apologized. Professionally, I was willing to accept whatever action he had to take. This incident got a lot of visibility that brought negative attention to my brothers and sisters in uniform. At any rate, what he did was put me on a path to recovery. He said, I'm going to take away all of your qualifications, so you're not in charge of anything at this point. He said, but you can go earn all of those qualifications back, and you can get right back to your current level of responsibility. But it's up to you. Now, it took me 2 years to get to that level of responsibility at this particular command. So He was setting a fairly steep slope, but he was giving me the option to recover. So there's 3 takeaways from that story that resonate with me every single day. Number 1, you owe your leader 100%. There's nothing between 100% and 0. You can't say, well, 90% of the time we do what our leader says, or I'm going to follow that order starting tomorrow. Doesn't work. You owe your leader 100%. Second takeaway, as a leader, you have to require 100%. If you don't require 100%, then you will get less than 100% regularly, and that'll continue to diminish. Yeah. Number 3, the most important thing, and why I think this commanding officer is such a great leader, is he had the foresight. He could have ended my career that day, but he had
Yeah.
the foresight to put me on a path for recovery, but it was up to me. He he made it painful, but it was up to me. Am I bought in? Did I own it, and am I bought in? And he gave me the
Yeah.
opportunity to answer that myself, which I did.
Yeah.
Came back and got my qualifications, and I actually got a very nice promotion at the end of that
Wow.
tour. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so three takeaways that are part of my training and part of my daily thought process.
I mean, I love all of that, and it's such a wonderful story. And I know the specifics, and if it's fair of me to say, like that thing you weren't supposed to do could be termed goofing off, right? Like
Yeah, yes, without a doubt.
so, and it caused a problem that day.
It caused a problem that day. There's no doubt about
Not like it usually did, like you did that all the time, but that day it caused a problem, and that day was the one day you had been told essentially no more goofing off.
it. That's right. That's right.
Is that fair?
Oh yeah, yeah. Boy, the
Okay.
irony of that timing, unbelievable. We have done
Yeah.
this many times in the past. No drama, no dilemma,
Right.
no visibility, and the day we're told not to do it anymore is the day that
Whammo.
it caused a problem.
Well, and here's what I just want to resonate with that fabulous example of leadership, because you could have walked out of that office in handcuffs,
Yes,
but he let you walk out of that office at the bottom of a 2-year slope, right? A very
absolutely.
steep slope. Now, what I love about that is that they had already invested a whole bunch in you, right? You were already capable at all those things that he stripped you of your qualifications for. If you were bought in, and if you were willing to accept this punishment over walking out in handcuffs, they were going to recover you. All that investment was not wasted. And for me, that's such an important thing to remember when people screw up, is if they genuinely understand what they did wrong, and if they genuinely regret it and learned their lesson, well, heck, now they're more valuable. Bob, you came back, you walked out of that office more valuable than you walked in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hadn't thought it through to that level, but you're absolutely right about that. There's no doubt about that, and he obviously had made a determination, probably prior to me walking in, but certainly after our discussion.
Yeah.
I just remember walking in, the pit in my stomach and the lump in my throat, and my eyes starting to well up a little bit. I just felt, and I felt terrible because this person trusted me and relied on me, and I violated that, and I thought, I just thought I did a terrible thing, and he was the wiser, put me on a path for recovery. But to your point, John, you're spot on. People will come up with less than 100%. People will mess things up. It happens all the time, and as a leader, you have to recognize that. Check that buy-in and put them on a path for recovery. In one of my Elevate Your Leadership courses, we had an executive. This woman was kind of the main executive for this company, for this one individual, for about, I think she said 30 years. And I don't know, 15, 20 years into her career, she did something that cost the company about $25,000. And she felt, and it was her mistake, and she knew it, and she felt terrible about it. And she went to the boss, and she said, and his name was John as well. She said, "John, I know that was my mistake. I know now that I look back at it, I see exactly where I screwed up." And she's like, "If you have to fire me, or if you want my resignation, no problem at all." And he said, "Martha, I just spent $25,000 training you."
That's exactly it, Bob. That's exactly it. Like, if somebody screws up, like if they get the lesson, why would you ever let them go?
Right.
Now they're never going to do that again. I promise you, Bob, you're never going to, say tomorrow's the last time that when the commander says today, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. It's believe me, and it's a give take, right? So when I give directions, I'm looking for how well that message is received, but also when I'm receiving directions, if you will, in different aspects of my life, I'm making sure that I'm aware. I'm making sure that I'm 100% aware.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really great. That's one of my favorite stories of yours. I just think that's such a great such a great way that he handled that, you know.
Yeah, no, it was, and and there's other. I could give you other examples, but those are two that have really helped shape who I am. The other part of that is the military in general. Talking about the 26 years, the
Yeah.
military in general, they prepare you for leadership in a very deliberative and methodical way, and they also, and I guess this is kind of an example of that. They also allow you to fail as long as you're bought in, you're trying to accomplish the mission, you're of good moral and ethical character. They allow you to fail and
Yeah.
recover. I guess what I'm trying to say is when you start to fail, somebody's going to be there to
Yeah.
help you. Someone's going to catch you before
Yeah.
it's too late. And when I say catch you, I mean there's a safety net there. There's
Yeah.
there's a teammate who wants to see you succeed, and they're keeping an eye on things.
Some redundancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, so I would love to hear. I'd love to take it to the aspect of teamwork with the military, Bob, because one of the things that we have a mutual friend, Jonathan Bates,
Yeah,
and one of the things that I notice about Jonathan that I'm like in the most positive way, just deeply envious of, is that it seems part of it probably who he is, but I think a big part of it is his training. He's just constantly thinking about everybody on the team. And he is just always aware of that team dynamic and how's everybody doing and checking in with people. And I'm part of a group of friends with him, a bunch of people. He's the one who invited me, and I got to go to Necker Island with him.
that's cool.
Richard Branson's island, and watching him just cultivate everybody in that group and care about them and check in with them. And then I think about the fact that a well-trained group of the guys that you work with, the Navy SEALs. I mean, 12 of them can take on hundreds and not even get injured. And, they're the ones that end that battle. Tell me about teamwork and your perspective on it and how what you learned about that in the military.
Sure. So as a point of entry, a team is only as strong as its weakest link, as they say. What's the saying about a wolf pack? A pack of wolves is very powerful because of the strength each individual wolf brings to the pack.
Uh-huh.
But a team is critical to anything, and I'll give you a few examples. Everybody, if I said who invented the light bulb, what would you say?
I would probably say Thomas Edison.
Exactly, and it's right, and there's more to it though, and the more to it,
way more.
Yeah, he led a team of researchers, is what he did.
Yeah.
So, and often individuals are credited for major accomplishments when really there was a team, and this person happened to lead the team. And it's good leadership on Thomas Edison's part. Good leadership, Vince Lombardi, etc. But the team has to buy into the team, and they have to move uniformly. Now, getting back to the strength of each individual wolf in the military, we have 3 levels of training. We have individual training, team level training, and then what's called combined level training. So in order for me to contribute value to the team, I have to be good at what I do.
Yeah.
So I train as much individually as I need to bring value to the team. Think about an athlete or think about a musician, right?
Yeah.
The athlete has to be good at their craft. A musician has to be good at that instrument. But ultimately, that athlete joins a team, or that musician joins an orchestra, and that's where the true beauty, the true work, that's where great things happen, is when all those highly skilled individuals come together and really work together. So individual training, unit level training. Now, again, go back to a hockey team or even military, get my individual skills. Now the team practices together. We work on these different drills on the ice. I'm a hockey coach, by the way.
Okay.
So we work on these different drills on the ice as a team. So individual skill set, team skill set, and then we put it all together. Tournament champion, game tournament championship. We put it all together. In the
Yeah.
military, the combined training would be I'm a military parachutist. So as an individual, I know how to take care of my equipment and safely, exit the aircraft and get under canopy and fly my pattern and land. Now I'm
Yeah.
doing that with 7 other people. We all have to do that and be mindful of each other. And then we all execute the exit, the deployment, parachute deployment, the canopy, and the landing. But as a unit, we had to work with the air crew, the pilots. We had to brief the operation. And so that's that combined level where I say you have individual, then you have unit. Now we're at the combined level where we're communicating with the air crew, determining the drop zone, determining latitude and longitude, and
Yeah.
how we're all going to work together to make this thing happen. So
Yeah.
so developing a team, individual, unit, combined is very important. And then once you have your skill set developed, you have the initial training that makes you capable. You have sustainment training that keeps you at that level. And then you have advanced training to take you to the next level. And skills, whether it's shooting a weapon or, cutting the red wire, cutting the blue wire in EOD, or even being a leader in your organization. Leadership is a perishable skill. Being an athlete, playing an instrument, those are all perishable skill sets. And what I mean by that is you have to revisit the basics often to maintain a basic level of effectiveness. Yeah. And then, the conversation you and I are having, I would call, sustainment to advanced level to take us to the next level. Somebody's going to hear something on this podcast they haven't heard before, and they're going to go, man, I'm doing that,
Yeah.
So that's sustainment and or advanced level training.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that I think about a lot with the military, Bob, because whenever I read the things about some group that accomplished something amazing, I mean, the one that always that we talk about a lot now is Bin Laden, right? They went and got Bin Laden. There are also all kinds of other things that have happened like that. But the universal constant in my book that I notice is when people get asked, how did you do that? They say, we just did what we trained. Just what just happened. One of my heroes, somebody that I know, Mike Hopkins, is the commander of Crew Dragon 1 that just lifted off, and they're going to get to the International Space Station today,
Super cool.
And yeah, he's a great dude too. Really good guy. That they train all the time. It's almost like surfing. You shouldn't call surfing. You should call surfing paddling, because most of what you do as a surfer is paddle, right?
That's right.
Same thing with anything like that, and we accept that and think that's typical of the military or the astronauts. But then in the business setting, we don't do it. We're constantly, I don't have time for training. I don't have time to practice. I don't have time to prepare. Are you kidding me? Really? After all the other resources that go into this, and then you're the final place where it really, the rubber meets the road and it actually happens. You don't have time for that part.
Yeah. That's what I see. I work with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses and training and developing leaders and leadership and communication and all the things that go with that. Those are not active programs or components of running their business. And when they get to 20, I'd say between 15 and 25 people in the organization, it becomes critical at that point. And that gets to the discussion of leadership versus management. If you have one person that reports to you or one person that you're in charge of, you are a leader. And people for the most part want to be led, not managed. We manage budgets, we manage profit and loss statements, and we manage facilities and programmatics. But people should be and want to be led. And there's a big distinction between the two. And effective organizations pay attention to leadership development, kind of the way I described it earlier. There's an initial, there's a sustainment, and there's an advanced, and it's open and continuous. It's ongoing. And the most success in the military, that's how it was. My entire career, it doesn't matter what rank you got to or how high you got in the rank structure. There was always that next level of leadership training.
Yep. Well, I mean, and I think that's crucial. I think of things like leadership and communication. I think of them like golf or surfing. I can always, like, first of all, I'm not a good golfer at all, but even Tiger Woods or anybody at that level can imagine being a next level better at golf, right? There's that part of your game that could be even better. Same thing with surfing, like just you'll never ever reach the top of that mountain of being a good surfer. And I think the leaders that I see that are the most effective and the best leaders are the ones who have that kind of approach to leadership.
Yeah, I think my approach is always in stereo or 5.1 surround sound.
Say more.
If I learn something that I think, oh man, that's great, I'm going to implement that. The first thing I think about my management team is, do they need to implement this?
Yeah.
I implement this with my management team. Should they implement this with their teams? And so, it's a push pull. It's a constant kind of 360-degree method of communicating with everybody to make sure that you're sharing the best practices. But again, I look at everything, I guess, like, okay, what if I'm the teammate in this case, and what if I'm the team leader in this case? How do I approach this information? How do I use this information? And I'll tell you one thing I've discovered is, first of all, great teams have great leaders, and great teammates become great leaders. And that whole development, the development of a team, again, it takes time, but it has to be deliberate. But here's where I'm going. Here's what I've discovered. If you want to develop a great team, give them leadership training. Let them know what it's like to be the leader. We talk about empathy and the empathetic style of leadership, which I don't subscribe to. I think you should be a very empathetic person, but I don't think it is a style of leadership. I think it's a trait. It's a great trait of a leader. But let your teammates know what you're dealing with as the leader. Leaders don't. We have this tendency to be the answer man. I solve problems. Well, you can be very strategic and stop problems from even happening. And having developing good leaders underneath you, it really it takes the stress off of you a little bit as well. Yeah. Look at well, you've probably heard this, but they say if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone.
Yeah.
If you want to go far, go as a group.
Yes.
Right? So, and look at the inverted V, a flock of geese.
Yeah.
That lead goose is just leading the charge for a little bit because he's doing most of the work. Yep. And when he starts to tire a little bit, he'll fall back in the formation and somebody else takes lead for a little while. And that formation can go a lot farther that way.
Yes.
Between breaks. So
much farther.
Yeah. So train your people in leadership and give them opportunities to lead.
Well, one of the things that I really love about that is that so often I talk to, say, startups, and the founders in the startup, the leaders of the company, they'll wish everybody had this entrepreneurial approach, right? Or I'll work with big organizations and they're trying so hard to bring a little bit of entrepreneurial thinking to the rank and file of their company. And, unless you've really had the experience of being a real entrepreneur, like somebody who, if no one else does it, you have to do it or it won't get done. That thing of being responsible for everything and thinking much more holistically about what you're up to and having to see the whole bigger picture. If no one's had that experience, how do you expect them to be able to do that? And same thing with leadership. If you give people the experience of what it's like to do the thing you want them to do, it makes an enormous difference. I think that's a really great, I hadn't seen it that way,
Yeah. Another great aspect of that is when you invest in your team, when you invest in the people on your team, they recognize that and they appreciate that. I send people to Dale Carnegie and Franklin Covey. I started Elevate Your Leadership because those are good programs, but they weren't what I grew up with in the military, which is why I started it. But But regardless of how you invest in your team, make that investment, make that sincere investment, and they appreciate it. They're that much more bought into the team and bought into the mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you'll get more out of them. And it's the carrot or the stick. You get a lot more with carrots than you do with
Yes,
sticks. People would
that's for
rather,
sure.
yeah, people would rather run towards a carrot than away from a stick.
And I know that I know that it might almost sound trite to say this, but I think it's so important. It just got really present for me again a few days ago. I think some people think of that kind of training as a cost. It's not a cost. It's an investment,
That's
right?
exactly
And
right.
that investment will pay back multiples over time if
Yeah,
you're willing to make it. So Bob, I know you've got to go pretty soon. You've got another podcast that you're going to be on. You're just such a wanted man. Um, what's one of the nuggets that you've been sharing through Elevate Your Leadership? Like, what's one of those pieces that was missing from Dale Carnegie that you got in the military that you've been bringing to these companies that you support?
sure.
Are you willing to give us one of those?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I'm going to give you two, and it's really the foundation of my presentation, Elevate Your Leadership. So let's talk about foundation for a minute. A skyscraper is a very tall building, and it has a foundation that's very deep and very wide. Now, that
Yeah.
foundation often goes unseen. It goes largely unseen, but without
Yeah.
that foundation, that building will topple. It won't last. And leaders have to build a similar foundation. And you do that through training and education and experience and doing it continuously, lifelong learning, like we're talking about. So,
Yeah.
my part of my presentation is what I call the art and science of leadership. Now, that's not a new term. That's not my term. Everybody's heard that. But the way I define the art and the way I define the science is different than anything you've heard. And my definition of the art is part of building a foundation. And we touched on it already. It's leadership styles and power types. You have
Mm-hmm.
to put in your conscious mind the leadership styles that suit you the best. You can Google the 3, the 6, the 9, the 12 best leadership styles. The reality is there's about 3 or 4 that you're naturally adaptive to, and you need to be aware of that, and you need to be
Mm-hmm.
conscious of that. And those are the things you engage when the opportunity presents itself. So that's leadership style. So for me, coach, we mentioned referent, visionary. Those are the leadership styles that I subscribe to. Everybody needs to know my vision, and we're all marching in the same direction. So part of the art and part of the building of your foundation is grabbing onto the leadership styles that suit your personality and your preferences the best. Then there's power types. There's legitimate power, and there's legitimate power, positional power. There's all these power types. So the same thing applies. You have to look at probably 3 or 4 power types. There's again, you can Google the 7, the 10, the 12, but I would find the 3 or 4 that you're most comfortable with, that work best with your leadership styles.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I call it the art, because once you have those things in your conscious, then really what you're doing is blending them on any given day for any given situation. I need to be a little bit of a visionary, but I need to be more of a coach right now. So you build your foundation. So nugget number 1, the art of leadership is we build a foundation. Number 2, the science of leadership, something that has never been discussed in any leadership forum that I've ever been to throughout my entire professional life. I have 6 components to the science of leadership: rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning. Picture those 6 things in a Venn, right? Intersecting circles. All of those things affect one or all of the others. If I'm not well rested and I'm not well hydrated, my exercise benefit for my brain and my heart will be a lot less, right?
Yeah.
Nutrition. But those 6 things, those 6 things are critical to leadership. If I have to make important decisions, I got to be well rested and well hydrated.
Yeah, I hear you.
You got to be in your right state of mind. So rest, hydration, nutrition, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning, exercise and lifelong learning, critical to a leader. Leaders And people in general make poor decisions when they are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. HALT,
Yeah.
HALT. And you have to consciously know where you're at throughout the day and make sure that you are well equipped at any given moment to make those proper decisions. So the art
Fabulous.
of science.
I love it. Well, and yeah, boy, and we got to think about HALT right now, huh? I think most of us are pretty lonely, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah. No, there's a socialization aspect to human beings that's being challenged right now. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
yeah,
And I'll give you one last one, and that is
please.
my definition of leadership. When I do elevate your leadership, we talk about various definitions, and then I like to have everybody come up with their own. Leadership, just like we talk about the art and the science, leadership is a very personal thing. You should develop your brand, maintain, and advance your brand of leadership. So I have everybody come up with their own definition. My definition is to use my experience, education, and training to enable others to accomplish their objectives.
Fabulous.
And that might change, but that's where I'm at now. That's where it's evolved.
I like it. I think it's fabulous. That's great. I mean, that's, that is servant leadership, right? You're being of service with everything that you've got.
It's a component of it, absolutely. In most cases, in a lot of cases, objectives are mutual. But
yes,
I want to help. I have 35 teammates at iFly Virginia Beach. I want to help them get through college, and I don't want them to work here forever. I want them to move on and do bigger and better things with their lives.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Well, that must make them want to be there even more.
It's a great team. It's we're in a good place, and I applied a lot of the military modeling, how you build a team. One line supervisor for every 7 or 8 people, and then departments, department heads, and it's just it's a great structure. It enables awesome communication, and it lets people know that we got your back.
And what I like about the military structures like that is that they've been with us for thousands of years. I mean, like the breakdown numerically and organizationally, I don't think that's radically changed since heaven knows when, right? Because it's just how groups of humans best organize.
No, that's right. It hasn't changed. It's the basics. Be brilliant at the basics, right?
Yeah.
General Mattis, in his book Call Sign Chaos, he says 2 or 3 times, be brilliant at the basics. And leadership, there's some leadership academies, and they have these matrices and all these XY charts, and they make it a very complex undertaking. And I don't think it's complex. Now, I'm not saying it's easy,
no,
but it's not complex or complicated. You just have to,
Agreed.
You have to keep it simple, be brilliant at the basics, know who you are more than anything else. And
I would agree with you there.
Yeah. And give people the best of you, give them the best you have to give, and they will respond accordingly. And I've been on the receiving end of that. I know this because I've been on the receiving end of it for most of my adult life.
Yeah. So Bob, we only have a few more minutes left. I want to be aware of that. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, or anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to answer anyway, or anything like that?
Let me just mention a couple things real quick. So part of the reason I developed Elevate Your Leadership was to do it in conjunction with a flight experience at iFly. It's a great team building. It's a great company offsite. It's a great way to get people cheering for each other and rooting for each other. And I see it every day. We bring people together. So I developed this to take place either at my facility in Virginia Beach or any of the 35 iFlies across the U.S. I just did one in Texas, for example. It was a great 2-day event. And but with COVID, I had to pivot to the webinar format. So I now do a webinar. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. to noon for 3 days. So it's 6 hours of content. But again, it's a facilitated discussion. So my webinar is available, and you can see that and sign up for that on my website. And then the bigger, in-person events at iFly, you'll see some videos and some stuff about that. So my approach is different from every aspect you can imagine. I'm a Maxwell certified speaker and coach, but I don't teach the Maxwell material. I teach the Bob Pizzini material. And when they want that experiential event, there's nothing like flying in the flight chamber, as you so eloquently described at the beginning.
Well, and I think that when, as my little 4-year-old says, when this whole virus thing is over, I think you and I are going to make some events available there as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're still
absolutely.
going to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's I can't wait for that. That's where we were tracking towards before all this hit, and
Yeah,
my relationship with you and the discussions that we've had. I mean, that just fuels and energizes me. So
yeah,
without a
me
doubt,
too.
without a doubt,
It'd be such a blast. All right. Well, so Bob, great to talk with you. I certainly am really happy for you and proud of you, and glad that you guys are tracking and you're doing okay there. And I wish you all the best. And thank you very much for coming and sharing things with us. And I think we'll probably have to do this again, right?
I'd love to. Love the podcast. Love your, some of your previous guests, and I shouldn't say some of them, but one obviously stands out. And but yeah,
Yeah,
this is fun.
right on. Okay, good. Well, great to have you here, Bob. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Speak Like a Leader podcast. This is
Thank you.
John Bates wishing you well. Bye, Bob. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.